have what you need and never be without because you planned ahead to execute your plan. By planning ahead, you will never fail. You only fail if you do not plan.
We live in an era today where you can actually get a lot of this work done through automation where no human touches it, so that month-end close now is something is largely out of your hands. That's the world we live in today.
Let's make sure that you're looking at those reports and that those reports are accurate and comprehensive, that all of the information is there that needs to be there.
I am a huge advocate at the end of every month for sitting down in quality time. Yes, leaders, I'm saying take time, close your door, sit with records, your computer, your documentation in whatever form that happens to be, and begin asking yourself questions.
Are you tired of doing the same thing in repeating situations which end up with the same result? Maybe it's time for a new perspective. This is Viewpoints on the Multifamily Media Network. Our hosts discuss a topic from different angles and provide actionable ideas. Maybe a new view would change the outcome. Welcome to MMN Viewpoints.
Welcome to Viewpoints. My name is Chris Caramanica, and I am the host of Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance. And I also co-host The Turnover with Paul Rhodes and Mark Sharp here on the Multifamily Media Network. This month's viewpoint is on month end. Month end for maintenance should be about planning. Failure to plan is planning to fail. This quote is often attributed to one of our founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, and I think he was a pretty smart guy. Now, there are plenty of tasks a maintenance team should be completing to successfully close out the month. A short list of these items include ensuring all work orders are properly documented and closed out from the weeks prior, reviewing purchasing systems to make sure that all invoices are in, and if not, work with vendors to get provided and load it up into your PMS system. Also, reviewing open purchase orders to make sure that there is nothing missing so that any expenses incurred in the month are properly accounted for and financially accurate for the closing of the month. Also, closing out make-readies in the PMS system for upcoming move-ins. Reviewing budgets to actual spend so you know what you actually spent in a given month and what you have left to probably spend for subsequent months and years. It's really important at month end to make sure that you've closed out officially any projects or vendor work completed in that month. And that could be anything from paying an invoice to doing a site visit to checking on the work that's been done and signing off on it. But for me, month end is not just about looking back. It should be about planning, and not just for the coming month, but for the next 2 months, 3 months. There are a lot of things that need to be done at month end to successfully close out the month. But what about planning for the next? If you've ever been to the grocery store or big box store at the end of the month, you might see inventory tags on shelves, big signs that have a count and say, "Do not touch inventory in progress." Now, these days, a lot of inventory tracking is done electronically, but there is nothing quite like a physical hard count of your inventory to confirm your physical inventory matches your electronic counts. And that's why you see those signs in those big box stores in your grocery stores at month end. They're physically verifying their electronic counts. To properly inventory your shops and storage spaces, it's important to make sure it's a focused and dedicated task. Ever try to count to 10? Easy, right? Try it. I'll wait. Got it. Now start to count to 50. Easy to get distracted. Brain starts to wander. A noise pulls your focus. And what happens? You need to start over. Now, imagine trying to take inventory in your shop. You're just about finished counting the 9-volt batteries you have stocked on the shelf, and your two-way radio goes off. There's a clogged toilet in Unit 23. And she will only be there until 12 o'clock. Can someone go right over? You reply 10-4 in your best radio voice. But wait, what was the number of the 9-volt batteries? Was it 10? No, that's not right. 12? No, maybe 23. Damn, now I need to start recounting the batteries. But after I unclog that toilet. Counting inventory seems easy, but it must be done without distractions. Close the shop, turn off the radios, communicate with everyone that the shop is closed for inventory, and ensure that everyone knows the importance of this for you and the property. Properly inventorying will help you reduce month-over-month expenses. It will also help you plan what you need for the next month or two. Counting what you have and ensuring you have a minimum and maximum inventory level that you've determined is really what you need to be doing. And you need to do it every single month. Have you looked at your availability report? Month end is the most frequent time of the month for residents to either move out or move in. Have you reviewed your move out inspections? Do you know what the timing of your upcoming move outs is? Staying on inventory. Have you taken that into account? Here's an example. Typically, you keep 4 bathroom sink faucets on the shelf to address routine service requests. But you have 5 move-outs happening on the last day of the month, and 3 units happen to be moving in the middle of the month. Well, if all 8 of these units need a new sink faucet, you're going to be short 4 after your first 3 move-outs. Plus, what about the 4 service requests that you typically get a month? You see, your inventory level is typically 4, but you are probably going to need 12, and you should plan for that. But if you only order those 4, it's going to delay your move-ins because you're waiting for the supplies that you didn't order at month's end or beginning of the subsequent month. It's really important to get a routine of regularly inventorying your shops, but also planning ahead on what you need to keep in your inventory above your preset minimums and maximums. You need to make sure that you have the supplies for your turnovers and your make-ready units. If you lose a day of rent because you were short a faucet, the loss of the rent far outweighs the cost of you planning ahead and adding one more quantity to your order for that additional faucet that you needed. Another major aspect of month-end planning is what is happening next month. Sounds simple, right? But are your fire extinguishers due for their annual inspections? Are there any annual inspections due next month? What about semi-annual or quarterly inspections? If you have inspections with outside vendors like fire extinguishers, backflow preventers, boilers, elevators, it's good to call at month end and get on their schedule for the subsequent month to make sure that they have the items in place they need to do the things that you have scheduled with them. Have you gotten all your invoices? That's a really great time to set up with those vendors for your next month as well. Hey, Johnny, you were here earlier this month and took care of that plumbing leak for me, and I didn't get an invoice yet. And I'm going to need you back in 2 weeks to start up our systems irrigation. Planning ahead, you can have those conversations. And it's not a last-minute run-around thing. You see, our vendors and suppliers are also going through month-end tasks. And they're also planning. So get on their schedules and get your orders in for the current month, for the coming month, and the months ahead. What about seasonal changes? Are there things that happen seasonally you need to plan for? Gutters that need cleaning, pools that need opening or closing. Like I said, irrigation systems that need to be started up or winterized. These somewhat obvious and routine tasks only take place a couple times a year, but they can easily be forgotten about due to their frequency. Think ahead, plan ahead, and you will be ahead of the game. A lot of the items I've discussed and reviewed are all items that can be considered part of your community's preventive maintenance plan. If not, they should be. If you have a single preventative maintenance plan that breaks down all the tasks at your property, like I've mentioned, or your specific property needs, if the items are all written down on a big board, you can view at a glance, or they're put in as work orders in your PMS system that recur on the frequency, whether it be monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. Kind of hard to forget when you have that work order pop up in your system that it's time to open the pool. Now, you know it's time to open the pool, but now you have a work order for it, and you can plan accordingly. If you're looking at your preventative maintenance tasks and you're looking at your schedule a month or 2 months ahead, you can call those vendors that are needed. You can order those supplies. You can staff up. You can let your staff know and communicate the items that you have coming up at the property. You can plan projects around upcoming preventive maintenance tasks and actually stay on top of them. You can look at next month and the following month preventative maintenance tasks. You can add the supplies that you need for the upcoming seasonal items, like HVAC filter changes, chemicals for pool opening and closing, replacement belts for fans, extra irrigation heads, 9-volt batteries for your smoke and CO detectors. What about cleaning solution for your quarterly trash chute washdowns, batteries for emergency lights? And the list can go on and on and on depending on your site and equipment. But if you're looking ahead at your schedule, what you can do is you can add that to the inventory of items that you need for your coming weeks and months. That way, you don't have to wait to do the task to do the supplies. You have the supplies ready when you're ready to do your tasks. By planning ahead on all of these things, you'll be able to properly inventory the needs for your coming months. And you'll be able to do it at the beginning of the month for the next month. You can order what you need before you need it and have what you need and never be without because you planned ahead to execute your plan. By planning ahead, you will never fail. You only fail if you do not plan. Thank you for tuning in for my viewpoint on month's end from the maintenance perspective. Join me and my guests on Beyond the Work and my co-hosts for The Turnover to hear our viewpoints on all things maintenance and multifamily.
Hello, and welcome to Viewpoints. My name is Mike Brewer, and I am traditionally and normally the host of the Multifamily Collective podcast, but I am chiming in this month for the Viewpoint. And I think the topic is month end. And the discipline or role that I play in this circumstance or in this scenario is as a chief operating officer of an organization, part of my responsibility is to make sure that month end is done in a timely manner and it's done with a high level of accuracy, because the data that pushes through as a result of a month end is crucial when it comes to reporting out to any and all constituents, be it investors or ownership groups or asset managers, etc. And so one of the common mistakes that I see in this area of month end is that many times community managers, property managers, and we could name off a plethora of reasons why this happens, but let's just throw it all in the bucket of busyness and or serving the consumer or serving team members or serving whatever might be on their plate or in their face on a particular day. But the point or the punchline is that month end sometimes gets rushed to close because we have a pile of things that are undone that have to be done prior to the month end close. And it's not for ill intent, because no one likes to do all of that work at the last minute to get it all put into the system. But neither is it a circumstance or a problem that you can't solve. And my recommendation for solving the problem, as I see it at least, where you have this pile of stuff, whether it be invoices that need to be input, it be move-ins, move-outs, deposit reconciliations, whatever it is, there's this pile of work that needs to be done. And some of my solutions include the tried and true stuff like using and utilizing your team members in a highly productive way. That is delegation, right? If you teach and train and mentor your and coach your players in the right ways, you can delegate a lot of those tasks, a lot of those responsibilities that are germane to month-end close. The move-ins and move-outs can be done by a leasing consultant or an assistant manager. the accounts payable, at least the data entry portion, can be done by a leasing consultant and or a maintenance supervisor or a very trusted maintenance technician. And deposit reconciliations, my gut tells me the assistant manager in a traditional hierarchy has to be responsible for that. I think I left one out, but it doesn't matter. Any and all tasks that would normally be on your plate can be delegated to other people, which helps with their growth. It helps with their skill set development. It helps with their career tracks. So if you're teaching and training and mentoring and coaching, you're actually elevating a team member, and they're being elevated as a result of their task completion, the reps that they're doing that assist you. And if they're doing it with a high degree of accuracy, in other words, if you don't have to go back and correct a lot of errors, you have somebody that is, let's call them an A player, somebody that can be elevated and promoted in the future. Or if you're a one-man show or a one-woman show on a property, you have to really sit down and you have to understand this. This is something that I learned very early in my career. If you're a one-person show on a property, there is a lot of work. So let's say your business hours are from 9 to 6 or 9 to 5. Doesn't matter, whatever they are. Your defined business hours where consumers can walk in and out of your door, team members can come in and out of your door. There is that set of work hours. The real work in property management, the dues that you have to pay happen between 6 in the morning and 9 a.m. when that front door opens, or earlier if you're early bird, or 6 o'clock at night to 9 or 10 or 11 or whatever number of hours it takes to get it all done. I learned very early in my career that property management is not a 9-to-5 job. If you're in the property management role, if you're in a role of responsibility, maintenance supervisor, property manager, the hours are not 9 to 5. They're not 9 to 6. They're not traditional business hours. Those traditional business hours are where you serve the consumer. That's where you serve your team members. Those off hours and weekends are when you get your real work done. And that's just the sad fact. That was just the sad fact of property management leading up to today. Now, what do I mean by that? I think the world today, technology has actually caught up with systems and processes in property management. So now you have human capital, you have processes and systems in property management, you have human capital that you can put against those processes and systems, but now you have this third leg of the stool, so to speak, and it's called technology or prop tech or rent tech or whatever tech you want to attach to it. Now you have the opportunity to take processes and systems and digitize them and automate them and or centralize them through offshoring or outsourcing to third-party entities or partners, thereby giving you a lot of time back as a property manager or community manager, actually really spend normal business hours serving consumers and serving team members. A lot of what we do today in routine work as it relates to the month-end close and trying to stay on topic as it relates to month-end close, a lot of that routine work can be done through automation. If you want to just think about the move in and move out process, these days you can stitch together technologies that actually automate that entire process from procuring a lead, turning that lead into an application, turning that application into an actual lease agreement, turning that lease agreement into a transaction where somebody picks up the keys or the keys are left in a lockbox for somebody to pick up, and all digital signatures and all blanks filled into the lease, into the application in a way that is of precision, and all the qualifications, all that stuff on the front side, done without human interaction. Somebody can actually move into an apartment without any human interaction, to include showing the unit, to include signing the lease, to include picking up the keys to move in. All of that can be done with zero human interaction. So as it relates to month-end closing, your move-ins and your move-outs can all be automated, completely automated, without a human. Doesn't have to involve a human at all. A lot of AP now can be done offshore or outsourced And much of that has been digitized and automated by those people that might partner with to do that work outside of your own business office. You do still have oversight and control in the sense that you have to approve invoices that are done. But I think we're very quickly getting to a day where you're going to have these point of sale and point of procurement, point of sale transactions that happen through proximity verification or photo verification. So if a carpet cleaner comes in and they do work, they do proximity verification through their cell phone, they do photo verification through their cell phone, invoices are automatically created and payment based on terms. Let's just pretend for a second you wanted to pay real time. Payment can be paid right then based on the proximity verification, the photo verification, and to the extent that there's some threshold beyond those two verifications, meaning you want to just go ahead and release any payment that is $50 to $100 or less. Let's say $100 and less, you just let those payments go. Or if it's $100 or more, you still have this sort of check and balance where you actually check off and approve an invoice to be paid. So all of that to say that we live in an era today where you can actually get a lot of this work done through automation where no human touches it, so that month-end close now is something is largely out of your hands. That's the world we live in today. But if you live in that old traditional property management system, you still have a lot of those things, a lot of those ways of getting month-end done in a precise way, like delegation that I mentioned earlier. So that is my viewpoint as it relates to month-end. Take care. We'll talk to you again soon.
Hello, I'm Gabrielle Gonzalez. I'm the host of the podcast CX Unplugged on the Multifamily Media Network. Today is my first contribution to the series Viewpoints, and I'm really excited to share some information with you guys. And this episode is talking about month end. So thanks for joining us, and I'm hoping to share some valuable information with you. I will preface my contribution by highlighting a core belief of mine, which is that the customer is really more than just the end user or the resident. The customer is really anyone who you interact with as a representative of your company. So in every interaction, you are the face of your organization. And the way that you communicate, the way that you solve problems and provide service shapes their perspective of the company. So whether you're assisting a resident or working with a contractor or collaborating with your team, providing exceptional service and clear communication is what builds trust and improves the experience overall, right? And it also enhances the company's reputation. So I just like to preface that, because when I talk about customer experience, I'm not just talking about that end user in that transaction. So today we're talking about month end, and month end is really, in my opinion, it's an opportunity to circle back and make sure that all of your pending projects land where you wanted them to. And if not, to take the time to retool and rethink maybe your strategy or your deadline and set a new one. So a good month end also really provides you with a really good starting point for the next month, right? Not all months can end great, unfortunately. But what we do know is if we start the month off on the right foot, we have a much better chance of having a great month. So I always like to point out and have people remember that ending a month on a good foot, right, sets you up to have a good month moving forward. So it's important to make sure all of your loose ends have been attended to. For example, a typical month-end process is going to include the generation of a variety of reports that summarize the previous month's activity, these reports, they're not only going to highlight operational success, but they're also going to call attention to action items. So some of the examples I want to share with you today are just a few examples of how you can take a look at month end and from a customer focused lens. So colleagues, for example, are there any upcoming changes to be made to the team or to policy, or are there any issues that you may have been asked to review and respond to from your team? A lot of times, maybe your team will ask you to review a proposal that they have made on a resident event or marketing strategy or a capital improvement process or a preventative maintenance program, whatever the case may be. Many times, maybe they've given you that information and you had to really take some time to ponder that and get back to somebody. And there's nothing worse than not getting back to someone when you said you would, or being that person that creates that log jam. And it happens to the best of us. Month end is a great opportunity to really reflect back and say, hey, is there anything that's still pending? Does any member of my team still need something from me? And if so, let me get that figured out and get back to them on that. Or if you can't figure it out right now, communicate that with them and let them know it's still on your mind. Also, did somebody do something great this past month? And I bet you they did. So take the time to get interested in it and then let them know. Tell them, you know what, this past month, you really did this great and I appreciate it. So month end is also a great opportunity to let people know when they really knocked it out of the park. Residents. So it's also a really good time to reflect on that service to residents. So what happened in the last month's move-ins, for example? Did they go as planned, right? Have you received feedback or reviews from each of these new residents? Do you need to follow up on any pending issues from the past month's move-in? And those may be maintenance-related issues. Those may be paperwork issues or, information data gathering issues, or whatever the case may be. But is there anything that you need to do to make sure that the move-ins went smoothly? And if they didn't go smoothly, maybe there's an opportunity to reflect on that, summarize that information, and have subsequent conversations about that so that next month we can incorporate that feedback and improve those outcomes. Also, I'd like to point out here that as a rule of thumb, I think it's a good idea to personally reach out to every new move-in each month through their preferred method of contact after they've had, maybe a week or two to get in, and personally reach out to them and find out, hey, is everything okay in the apartment home? Did everything meet your expectations? Is there something that we need to get back to you on? How is it going? And even maybe if you're a manager and you haven't even introduced yourself, it's a great opportunity just to introduce yourself as well and welcome these residents to the community. So I invite you to do that for all new move-ins. And the end of the month is a great point in time to do that and begin developing those relationships or tying up those loose ends if they're still out there. Are there any residents waiting to hear back from you on a request or problem? That's another great thing to think about. So maybe a resident made a request regarding a policy, or they've asked you to search for a package they thought was going to be delivered, or perhaps they had a complaint about another resident or an employee, heaven forbid, or whatever the case may be. Oftentimes, residents will have questions about their residency, and it may take you some time to research that query and then get back to someone. It's really, really important. And I just can't communicate this enough, that even if you aren't able to resolve the issue, even if you don't have the final answer just yet, it's still important to get back to the resident and let them know it's still on your mind. It's on my list. It's on my mind. I'm still working on it. I have not forgotten about you because I know how important this is. And this is really important. Even just in saying that, I reflect back to a time very early in my career where I got a great piece of advice. And that advice was, anytime there's a resident issue, never, close up shop that day until you have gotten back to the resident. So never leave a resident concern or a resident complaint on your desk, basically pending at the end of the day. Make sure and call every resident back, even if you don't have the answer yet, just to let them know it's still on your mind. And I put that into practice, and have got to say that one bit of advice helped me up that customer experience game tremendously throughout my career. So here it is to you. And a month end is also a great time to think about it from that monthly perspective as well. The next customer segment is contractors. What capital improvements were completed this past month, or maybe remain in process? How'd they do? Did you have capital improvements or landscaping projects or building repair projects that were in process? How did they do? Do you need to provide some feedback to those contractors, or have you just not been able to? Have you kept crossing paths and missing each other? Month end is a great opportunity to make sure and reconnect with those people and exchange feedback. So if, for example, a contractor, and maybe it's not a capital improvement contractor, maybe it's just a turn contractor, and maybe your painter got, 20 apartments painted this past month, and they did a phenomenal job, and they really saved the day by helping you get that many units turned in a month. This is a great opportunity to reach out to them and just tell them thank you. Let them know that you recognize that hustle. They did a great job, and you really appreciate that partnership with them. Having those kind of communication moments with your contractors really helps to improve that level of experience that they're having with you. And again, month end is a great time to do that. Do you need to connect with a contractor maybe to confirm their bid selection, and you've sort of been pending on that? You got it a couple of days ago, but it just hasn't seemed to be the right time. This is the time to do it. Follow up on any pending issues that you may have with them. The last customer segment that I want to share with you a little bit about is owners, right? Owners are also a great customer segment. And those owners are looking at those reports. So getting back to those reports that you started running for your month end, that's what the owners are looking for. So let's make sure that you're looking at those reports and that those reports are accurate and comprehensive, that all of the information is there that needs to be there, and that those are done in a timely fashion. That information and that act is really going to help your company deliver the financial and or operational information to the owners that they are looking for as well. And that will help to drive that trust and customer experience from that perspective. So these are just a few examples of customer segments to be served on month end. Hopefully these can serve as a starting point for you, but I want to encourage you to identify and incorporate other customers into this routine, ones that maybe specifically are attached to you and your business. But overall, I just want to leave this as month end is a great time to reflect and communicate. So here's to you taking at least that once a month time at month end to reflect on the past month and communicate, especially when there's been successes. Thanks for joining us on Viewpoints from the Multifamily Media Network. And please make sure and check me out on CX Unplugged. See you next time.
Hello there. I'm Paul Rhodes, host of The Maintenance Mindset. And this month, we're looking at the month end. And the viewpoint I would like to discuss today is from the viewpoint of vendor management. On our communities, we need vendors more and more today. And I'm using that term vendor kind of in a very broad sense. This could be a contractor, someone that you're hiring to do painting on our community, or maybe somebody who's doing or providing our marketing service. All of these different service providers, that's what I'm including in this discussion today. And the reason why I think this is important for us to review at the end of the month is for no other reason than it just gives us or forces us to take the opportunity to review and plan ahead. At the end of the day, these people who assist us in doing our on-site work, whether it's the maintenance or the office, they, in my mind, should be viewed as partners. We partner together to together turn a profit, make money, keep our businesses afloat, provide employment. And both of us have an essential role to play in that partnership. Let me explain it this way. When I was the director of maintenance, we would, at the end of every time period, sometimes it was a month, other times it was a quarter, it just depended on which particular service we were reviewing. But we would go back and look at what service was provided to us within the previous time period. Let's say it is the end of a month. We would go back through all of the invoices and, from a very introverted perspective, look at it, did we get our money's worth? In other words, if we paid $1,000 for an apartment to be painted, was it painted to a good standard, to the scope that we needed to have done? If not, was this a one-time event or was it repeated throughout our month? Because the answer to both of those questions would change the way that we interact with our vendor going forward. In addition to the service, we also look at the actual bureaucracy of the invoicing, meaning, did we provide the purchase order before the service was done? Secondly, if we provided the purchase order before the service was done, did that purchase order information get successfully transmitted from us to our vendor to their billing service? Because it's possible that our vendor is outsourcing their billing service. And thirdly, did that information successfully make it into our payment program? All of these bureaucracy steps, which are different from the actual service that's being provided in the example given, painting, I mean, let's be real. Chances are the person who's applying the color to the wall inside the apartment is not the same person who is actually going into our online payment portal and uploading the invoice. In some instances, it's not even the same person who creates the invoice to begin with. Each and every one of these steps provides an opportunity for our partnership to get into problems. Yes, we're looking here about the money. We need to pay it. They need to receive it. In order for us to pay it, we have to have the various documentation steps so that our accountants release the money into our vendor. I'm aware of a management company that did not do an activity like this, and they came up at the end of a 6-month period, and all of a sudden a vendor that was performing service at their property had over $250,000 of service that hadn't even been invoiced. And because the community was having problems issuing the POs, the community was getting all of that work done, and they didn't realize how much that was stacking up. So the first thing to do at the end of every month is review your billings. This helps our partnership. On one hand, we get to keep accurate record of how money is leaving our community. On the other hand, our vendor gets to close out their accounts faster. The sooner that we have the ability to pay them, the sooner they have the ability to pay their employees and work all of their accounting systems. Now, understand, I am just a loudmouth maintenance guy. So the intricate details of that payment process, I'm going to leave up to you to interpret for your organization. All I know is that vendors are really, really happy when they get paid on time. We're really, really happy when the service that we set aside the money for is completed on time, and then the money leaves our account properly with our correct accounting. Now, outside of the financial piece of that, we have to connect the financial piece, to actual planned and predicted work. And that's the second thing to do or look at our community. Chances are, if your community has a year-long budget that you have the opportunity to see, particularly in the maintenance world, there are inspections or various events that are listed in your budget. Outside the maintenance world, I have a good sense that you have things that you need to get done at certain times. Possibly you're marketing or advertising in individual publications that go out on a quarterly basis, so that instead of budgeting every month within that quarter to pay that marketing bill, you only budget it in the 3rd month, the 6th month, the 9th month, and the 12th month. That way, if your billings or if your process breaks down, then you have to move money around. And at the end of every month is a good opportunity to review where in your annual budget you have money set aside for specific projects. In the maintenance world, one of the biggest is if your community has sprinklers. Most places around the country, those sprinklers need to be inspected at least annually. Now, some other possibilities of these inspections that have to be done could be smoke alarms. It's possible fire extinguishers. Depending on where they're located or how they're done, you may need or require some planning in order to make that occur. All of this is items that need to be reviewed on a periodic or regular basis. And I can think of no better time than to do it at the end of every month. You might even consider making yourself a checklist, a reminder sheet, so that you make that sheet up in January or even this month, February, and you look at it at the end of every month and it's got the same information. I remember one property we had budgeted for our fire life inspections to be done in August. So I put it on my month-end checklist that at the end of every month to look ahead and give me the opportunity to say to myself, do I need to worry about the fire life safety inspection? It's in August. Well, this is February. No, I'm good. However, about the end of April at that month, I would actually pause for a second and say, have I identified a vendor? Maybe I need to call 2 vendors. Who did it last year? Was their price fair? Maybe I need to get a second bid and see if there's a possibility of saving money this year. By taking at the month end a regular interval and thinking that way, I can set my community up to save money. This also gives me an opportunity to plan ahead on supply orders. And I'm kind of wondering if this would work for the office as well for their supplies. For instance, copier, toner, pens, paper even. Taking time to plan ahead is a way for the ability to order these things and have them delivered to the community, as opposed to, oh my goodness, I ran out of toilet flappers or I ran out of copier paper. I have to leave the community and head to either the local bricks and sticks box store, or I have to go to the office supply store and buy them. By planning ahead, especially for like maintenance supplies. For instance, if I know that I'm expecting to have 10 apartments to move out in the month of March, that would mean that at the beginning of the month of March, which is, if I'm performing this activity at the end of the month of February, at the beginning of March, I need to have 40 drip pans for my ovens, for my ranges. I can even take a guess. For 10 apartments, that's going to mean I need 16 or 17 toilet seats if my property has what my preferred activity of replacing toilet seats in between residents. So if those are standards, I want to be sure that I've ordered those and that they are here. I'm a huge believer where supplies are concerned, the lower quantity of orders over a month, the better our community performs. One, that's an indicator. You could even consider it a KPI. It's a KPI of how organized my community is, that I can order once per month. Twice per month would be acceptable. But if I'm organized and orderly and I've been there a while and my property is set up and organized, and I keep using that word, but really it's a big indication of how prepared your community is. If I'm organized enough to only require 1 order a month, then I'm familiar with what's going on at my community. I know what happened 12 months ago at my community, and I can begin to plan and predict ahead. To where 12 months ago, if I had to, if I am performing preventive maintenance on my air conditioning equipment, and I need to be sure that I have coil cleaner to do that job of cleaning the outdoor condensers. Well, last year, I know based on my history, because I got that from my vendor partner, that I used 3 gallons of coil cleaner. Then this year, the beginning of the month, I'm going to be sure that I have those 3 gallons of coil cleaner. Oh, and when was the last time I checked the pressure sprayer? All of these questions are why I am a huge advocate at the end of every month for sitting down in quality time. Yes, leaders, I'm saying take time, close your door, sit with records, your computer, your documentation in whatever form that happens to be, and begin asking yourself questions based on how did I do last month? What do I need to have ready for next month? And what do I need to prepare my vendors for? By the way, you can also do this with your service providers. Painters, If I know I have 10 apartments that need to be painted next month, why don't I go ahead and schedule them for the entire month? I know my resident's going to move out on March 8th. Why not schedule my painters for the 9th or the 10th? These are items that can be done on a regular basis, and take the opportunity at the end of the month to prove that you are organized, you're predictable, and you're planned ahead. Thank you for joining me this month on Viewpoints, and I'll see you somewhere.
Before you leave this episode, answer these questions for an action plan based on the perspectives you've heard today. First, what idea caught my attention? Second, what was identified as something that I need to discontinue? The answers noted are a place to start for improved success. To go deeper, check out the shows by hosts you've heard from today. Thank you for being open to different viewpoints. This has been a Multifamily Media Network production.